Hi guys, welcome back to this channel. Today I wanted to yap about my gacha journey so far and my perspective. But before we begin, I just want to mention or clarify everything I'm talking about in this video is based on my own experience. I'm not trying to say that one gacha game is better than another. And since I'm autistic and have ADHD, the way I experience games can sometimes be a little bit different. And that's part of what shaped this journey. So, yeah, with that out of the way, let's get started. I generally consider myself as a pretty casual gacha player. So, in comparison to a lot of other people in the community, I'm not a huge consumer of gacha games. I usually stick with the ones that I enjoy for a long time instead of playing lots of different gacha games at once. I have tried quite a few gacha games over the years. I have played Honkai Star Rail, Withering Waves, Infinity Nikki, and I also played Nier Reincarnation before its server shut down. Currently at the moment I am playing only two gacha games, Genshin Impact and NIKKE. Genshin was actually my very first gacha game, and I started playing it back in 2020. At the time nobody knew just how massive the game would become. We were all exploring and experiencing the world for the very first time. Looking back, I think it's fair to say that Genshin really raised the bar for gacha games. It showed what a high budget open world gacha game could be, and it had a huge impact on both the genre and the competition that followed. I genuinely fell in love with it. For years, Genshin wasn't just another game I played. I explored the regions, collected and built dozens of characters, completed almost every event, and logged in nearly every single day. Looking back, I don't regret any of those years. Genshin introduced me to the gacha genre and it created so many great memories. But over time, my relationship with the game slowly started to change, and that's where my view of the game also changed. I would log in daily in Genshin Impact. I loved discovering the story and collecting characters that I liked. Every major update felt exciting because there was always something new waiting, especially with the Genshin lore. But after years of updates, the game gradually became harder for me to keep up with. It wasn't one specific feature that changed my experience, it was everything combined. Every major patch introduced new characters, new materials, new mechanics, new events, and more systems to learn. None of these additions were bad on their own, but after years of constant updates, they started stacking on top of each other until the game felt increasingly overwhelming. Honestly, one thing that especially affected me was the amount of dialogue in Genshin. Like, bro, I actually like Genshin's story, and when I'm invested, I enjoy reading it. But not every quest held my attention in the same way. Some quests involve long stretches of dialogue, and without a proper skip button, there were times when I just wanted to continue exploring or just finish the quest. Instead, I found myself clicking through every fucking conversation for several hours because there wasn't another option. And I think even if you aren't neurodivergent, I think it's a really mental competition to keep up with it. It's just mentally training to continue these dialogues without a proper skip button. As I mentioned before, it wasn't that the dialogue was bad, it was that I couldn't always engage with it in the moment. Yet, I still had to sit through it before I could move on. And I still don't get it how Hoyoverse can't add a skip button to their game Genshin Impact. All of their fucking other games have it, but not Genshin Impact. A lot of players complain even about it, but I guess they won't actually implement it in their game, and I don't get that. Oh yeah, and the same can be applied to limited time events in Genshin, because they added another layer to that feeling. Many of them introduced their own mechanics, stories, and lengthy dialogue sequences. They were often well made, but because they disappeared after only a few weeks, they created a constant sense of urgency. If I wanted the rewards or simply didn't want to miss out the content, I had to make time for them before they were gone. I also feel like limited time events create gaps in Genshin's lore. The problem is that they're only available for a limited time. Once they're gone, you can't replay them anymore. That means new players completely miss out on those stories, while returning players who took a break can miss them too. The game's evolving meta didn't help either. Every update sparked discussions about the newest best characters, stronger team compositions, and which banners were worth saving for. Even if you don't care about perfect optimization, it's difficult to ignore when those conversations are everywhere. What made it more frustrating was that many of the strongest options were locked behind limited 5-star characters. As the meta shifted over time, it often felt like the newest recommendations required characters that weren't always available, making it easy to feel like you were constantly falling behind unless you kept pulling on new banners. Eventually, I noticed I was spending more time thinking about future Primogem plans than simply enjoying the game itself, because I felt like I was maintaining an account. I could also talk about other things that overwhelm me in Genshin, but to keep it short and simple, there were too many systems competing for my attention, too many temporary events, too much dialogue I couldn't easily skip, and a meta that never seemed to stop moving. I also took a break from Genshin before the release of Sumeru. After that, I only logged in occasionally, and at one point, I think I didn't log in for a few years until the beginning of 2025, where I started playing Genshin again. That break also made me realize something about long running gacha games in general. The longer they run, the more overwhelming they can become for both new and returning players. If you haven't played for months or even years, you suddenly have a huge amount of content to catch up on. Instead of simply picking up where you left off, it can feel like you have to relearn the game before you can fully enjoy it again. As a returning player, Genshin slowly became fun again. At first, I just wanted to catch up on everything I had missed, but with so many regions to explore and quests to experience, I found myself enjoying the journey instead of rushing through it. One thing that also had a big impact on me was the transition from Natlan to Not Cry. It made me even more excited to keep playing. The writing felt more engaging and the lore was easier to follow in Not Cry. I think the developers did a great job building anticipation before Shneznaya, especially with the major reveals. Even though there are still plenty of unanswered questions and lore mysteries, they left me genuinely excited to see where the story goes next in Genshin. Besides that, for a long time I just chased the feeling Genshin gave me back in 2020. That excitement of discovering a new world and looking forward to logging in every day. As I mentioned, I tried other gacha games before, but none of them captured that feeling until a few weeks ago. A few weeks ago, I finally decided to play NIKKE for myself. I had known about the game for a while, especially because it was developed by Shift Up, the same studio behind Stellar Blade. I also knew it had a reputation for being let's say, a gooner game. Personally, though, I never really cared about those aspects. What matters most to me is whether a game can pull me into its world, tell a compelling story, and leave a lasting impression. I wanted to see if NIKKE could do that. To my surprise, it definitely did. The story in NIKKE was far more engaging than I expected. The soundtrack immediately stood out, and the world was much darker than I had imagined. Before I knew it, I was hyper focused on the game. I was excited to keep pushing through the campaign, uncover more of the story, build my favorite characters, and save for new ones. It reminded me of how I felt when I first started Genshin years ago. The difference was that I wasn't logging in because I felt like I had to, I was logging in because I genuinely wanted to. NIKKE still has the usual gacha mechanics. There's grinding, different currencies, upgrade systems, and a meta. It's not completely free from the problems that exist in the genre, but so far it hasn't felt overwhelming. I can log in, make some progress, enjoy the story, build my favorite characters, collect my idol rewards, and log off again without feeling like I'm constantly falling behind. The idle progression has honestly been one of my favorite features because I don't feel like I need to spend hours farming every day just to make progress. I am still early in my NIKKE journey, so my opinion may change over time, but right now, NIKKE has reminded me why I fell in love with gacha games in the first place. Not because of its reputation, but because it made me genuinely excited to keep playing. Thanks for watching and see ya!